The lies were small, but they destroyed everything. It began with the kind of lie most people would forgive without a second thought. Daniel had promised to be home by 7:30. The client meeting had run long. He texted at 7:12. Stuck in traffic now, maybe 8:15. Sorry, love. He was actually still at the office bar with 3 colleagues, nursing a second beer and laughing about the new intern's PowerPoint disaster. The lie felt harmless. Necessary even. Marie had been tense lately. Work stress, her mother's latest hospital visit. And he didn't want to add, he chose happy hour over family dinner, to the list of small accusations accumulating between them. She replied with a simple thumbs-up emoji. He felt a tiny relief, the way a child feels when a parent pretends not to notice the broken cookie jar. The next small lie came 2 weeks later. Marie asked if he'd remembered to call the plumber about the dripping kitchen tap. Yes, he said without hesitation. Booked him for Thursday morning. He had not called. He kept forgetting, then remembering at inconvenient moments. On the motorway in a meeting at 11:40 p.m., and then deciding it could wait one more day. Thursday morning Marie left a note on the fridge. Plumber never showed. Called. They have no record of you booking. I'm taking the morning off to wait for the new appointment. Don't worry about it. She hadn't added any reproach. That was worse than shouting. The absence of anger felt like a withdrawal of expectation. He started to notice how carefully she phrased things after that. Are you sure you're okay with Sophie's parents picking her up from ballet on Tuesdays now? He had agreed 3 weeks earlier, then forgotten, then got irritated when the other mother rang to confirm. Of course, he answered. Why wouldn't I be? She looked at him for a beat longer than necessary. Just checking. The lies remained small. He said the restaurant was fully booked when really he'd rather stay in and watch the match. He said he'd finished the report when he still had 2 hours of work left. He said the shirt she bought him for his birthday was perfect, even though the collar irritated his neck and he never wore it. Each one was a pebble dropped into still water. The ripples never seemed to reach the shore. But the bottom of the pond was slowly silting up. By the 18th month of small lies, the house had developed its own quiet grammar. When Marie asked what time he'd be home, he answered with a range that gave him escape velocity. Probably between 7 and 9. When she asked if he'd eaten lunch, he said yes even when he hadn't, because admitting he'd forgotten again felt like another small failure she would have to carry. She stopped asking certain questions. She no longer asked whether he'd paid the council tax. She simply checked the online account herself. She no longer asked if he wanted to come to her sister's engagement drinks. She booked a table for one extra place and let him decide on the day. The silence wasn't hostile. It was surgical. One Thursday in late October, Daniel came home at 8:40. The kitchen light was on, but the rest of the house dark. Sophie was already asleep. Marie sat at the table with a cup of cold tea and her laptop open to a bank statement. I transferred money to my own account today, she said without preamble. He felt his stomach drop half a story. Why? Because I realized I don't know what our money is being spent on anymore. And I'm tired of not knowing. He tried to laugh it off. That's dramatic, isn't it? We share everything. Do we? The question hung there, light as tissue paper, heavy as lead. He sat down opposite her. What do you mean? She looked at him the way someone looks at a map when they've already decided they're lost. You lie about such small things, Daniel. So consistently. For so long. And every time you do, a little piece of me stops trusting the next thing you say. Even when it's true. Especially when it's true. Because I can't tell the difference anymore. He opened his mouth to protest, but nothing came. The words felt borrowed, rehearsed, insincere before they even reached his tongue. I'm not angry, she continued. I'm exhausted. There's a difference. The next morning she told him she and Sophie would be staying at her mother's for a while. Just to breathe, she said. I need to remember what it feels like to believe someone when they speak. He didn't argue. He didn't know how. The first week he kept expecting her to come back. The second week he started cleaning the house as though it might persuade her. The third week he found himself staring at the kitchen tap, still dripping, and realized he had never called the plumber. Not once. He sat on the floor with his back against the cupboard and cried the way he hadn't since he was 12. When Marie finally agreed to meet him for coffee, neutral ground she'd specified, he came prepared with apologies he had written down because he didn't trust himself to say the right thing spontaneously. She listened. She didn't interrupt. When he finished, she folded her hands around her cup. "I believe you're sorry," she said. "I believe you want to change. But belief isn't trust. Trust is built on evidence, not on promises. And the evidence I have is 19 months of tiny, unnecessary lies." He paused. "Do you know what the worst part is? I still love you. Think I always will. But I don't trust you to tell me the sky is blue if it suits you to say it's green. And I can't live like that. I can't raise our daughter wondering whether the person who's supposed to keep us safe is telling the truth about what he had for lunch." Daniel felt the words land like small, precise stones on his chest. "I don't know how to rebuild it," he whispered. "I know," she answered softly. "That's the problem." They sat in silence for a long time. Outside, rain began tapping the cafe windows in the same patient rhythm as the kitchen tap. Eventually she stood up. "I'm not saying forever," she said. "But I'm saying not yet." He watched her walk away, coat collar turned up against the rain, and understood that the space she left behind was not the temporary kind. It was the kind that settles into the furniture, the light switches, the smell of the rooms. The kind that becomes architecture. Months later, when friends asked what happened, he still didn't have a dramatic story to tell. No shouting match, no discovered affair, no single unforgivable betrayal. Just the slow drip of small lies wearing away the thing that had once held them together. He fixed the kitchen tap himself eventually. It only took him 4 hours and 2 trips to the hardware shop. When the dripping stopped, the silence in the house became louder than ever. And he finally understood. The lies had been small, but the trust they eroded had been the size of an entire life.